Hello, my name is Juliet Benide and this is my mirror board. My mirror board is basically divided between weeks. So week 1, week 2 and week 3, etc, etc. And it's divided by colors. So for example, alternative school can be mixed with participation aspects or decolonization. And it goes by topics. How my research came about. During the lecture in week 2, we were told to go to South Bank, but we weren't given a clear instruction as to why. While the rest of the group stayed on campus, we had to travel 40 minutes, which cost around £10 in travel alone, which not everyone has that kind of money to spend. Yet we were kind of forced to go for the lecture's sake, so I kind of didn't like that idea. So that led me into the next topic that I wanted to research about: anarchy, revolting up against the system, having the idea of running something with unestablished power, with ties into my idea of school as well. My ideal school, as in my little homework task in South Bank, was I designed a school for the children by the children. So I had this idea of social community. My main topic was basically having no central authority, and I looked at examples of anarchist nature. So for example, Kowloon Wall City in Hong Kong, which was a subverted city with no government. The idea of going up against and breaking away from the standard teaching per se. So I was looking into like anarchy sort of topics, going up against whole ideal. So I looked at Kowloon, the city in Hong Kong, which I thought was really fascinating, run by the people with no government or anything, so breaking away from having an established order. I sort of compared it to how people often compare house plants versus pavement plants, how if you nurture something too much, it'll become spoiled and grow dependent, limiting the capabilities, which I kind of compared that to how institutions might do that sometimes. They nurture the kids so much that they become too dependent on them and don't flourish creatively. We looked at systems in class and how an object can influence and impact, even if it's minuscule, on the system. For the takeaway task, we decided to do it all together and we looked at lifts. But then for the longer bits for the podcast, we just did it independently because obviously 5 hours is so long. I found it very informative and sort of pushed it to further my research, since the podcast talked about a bit of everything we covered in all the weeks. I used it to widen my research and analysis on every week's topics. So that was very good. And then for sustainability, I looked at the John Lewis ad and how stop motion, is it sustainable compared to other forms of animation, let's say 2D, 3D, because I looked at how 3D has such a bad carbon footprint using rendering farms and how that has a negative ecological footprint. This led me down the path hole of thinking that everything digital in the industry, animation industry, is not very sustainable. But then I looked at how we can communicate the idea of sustainability through narration, through the film Ferngully, for example, and just how it told the story of deforestation and the consequences it can have. And then I looked at decolonization, mainly Disney and Mickey Mouse. How Mickey Mouse is connected to minstrel imagery and how this connection is everywhere to blackface. I looked at the portrayal of the woman, the decolonization of the female, stripping away the woman's figure. I thought this was fitting for the theme because, for me, decolonization means gaining back control, regaining independence from something. And my whole idea was gaining independence from the male gaze, from the male in general. From the topic of the male gaze, I looked at The Substance, as well as Jessica Rabbit, and how that influences how the portrayal of the woman is seen. Then I looked at participation for week 5 and just kind of gave my little examples, and I kind of broke down the system for COVID because we were talking about that in class. I also wanted to look at some participation in a subverted way, so participation in online spaces, not in presence, delving into like VR chat and like video games and how that sort of all connects. And then for week 6, I looked at the Fantastic Planets, a French experimental animated film, which I thought was really, really cool.